This is a video about solving two-step equations with negatives using our integer sign rules. So that's what we're going to be doing. The first equation is one you see quite frequently put on testing. So when I read this one, I see negative x plus 1 plus 4 equals 2. Negative x plus 4 equals 2. So the very first thing I'm going to do is rewrite this because you have a negative sign in front of your variable. So when you go to isolate it, you can't have a negative sign. Remember, when a variable is by itself, there is always a 1 there. So I can rewrite this when I go to solve it on my scratch paper as negative 1 times x plus 4 equals 2. And that way, I will remember that I need to make sure my variable is positive. All right, let's go work it. Two-step equations, same steps as we did in the first video without negatives. Our first step is to always move the constant to the other side. That is the number without a variable or letter. Remember, someone made a puzzle out of this. And what did they do to the x and to this side? They added 4 and multiplied by a negative 1. So we're going to undo that math to both sides by using the opposite math operations. And remember, whatever we do to one side of the equation, we have to do to the other to keep it balanced, like a hanger. All right, so our first step is going to be to move that 4. The opposite of adding 4 is subtracting 4. And now you're going to see why I write my numbers horizontally on this side, so that when I have integers, I can deal with them. We have 4 and a negative 4. Remember, a number and its opposite added together give us 0 or none, leaving us with negative 1x is equal to, and now we're going to go on this side. The first number is smaller than the second. That's why we don't subtract when we're doing algebra. We go ahead and add the opposite, or you'll hear me say in my class, cross the line, change the sign, and follow the add rules. Can't add those two together. They have different signs. So different signs, we stop, we subtract 4 minus 2, we get 2. We go back and look at the problem to see which sign we have the most of. I have 2 positives and 4 negatives, meaning my negative line is longer on the number line, so I have a negative 2 for an answer. Now we have one step left to solve this equation. We've got to get rid of that negative with the variable. This means negative 1 times x. The opposite of multiplication is division. So we're going to divide both sides by a negative 1. When we do that, negative 1 divided by negative 1, 2 negatives divided give us a positive. So our x, our 1x or x, is now a positive variable. Equals 2 negatives. Remember, multiplication division rules. 1 negative, negative answer. 2 negatives, positive answer. So that's going to give us a positive 2. And there is our solution. Now we can put that back in where the variable is to make sure it was correct. Okay, so we have a negative 1 times 2 plus 4 equals 2. Negative 1 times 2 gives me a negative 2 plus 4 equals 2. Following our add rules, we cannot add these together. We subtract 4 minus 2, which gives us a 2. We have 2 negatives, 4 positives, so it's positive 2 equals a positive 2. So we have the correct answer for that equation, x equals 2. All right, let's move on to another one, another example. This example is 5 times x plus 3 equals negative 7. So again, they started out with a number. What did they do to both sides? They added 3 and multiplied by 5. So we have to undo that math by using the opposite operations to both sides to isolate the variable or the x. Our first step is going to be to do the opposite of addition or subtraction. The opposite of adding 3 is subtracting 3 to both sides. Again, that's why I write this side horizontally so I can do any kind of math I need to with my integer signs and not miss them. All right, on this side, you have 3, a positive 3, negative 3, opposites added together give us 0. It's gone. 0 means none. We're left with 5 times x equals. On this side, we have negative 7 minus 3. We don't subtract. Remember, we add the opposite. So we're going to cross the line, change the sign, follow our add rules. Same signs. It's the only time you can add integers. So they have the same sign. We keep that sign and add the numbers together because they're both going to the left on the number line. So we're left with 5 times x equals negative 10 for our last step. That's multiplication. The opposite of multiplying is to divide both sides by that number. So we're going to use that division. We use the fraction line. Divided by 5, divided by 5. All right, on this side, 5 divided by 5 gives us 1x or x. On this side, negative 10 divided by 5. We've got one negative in a division problem. Remember, one negative, negative answer. So I'm going to do that first so I don't forget it. That's the biggest step most people forget. And 10 divided by 5. So I end up with negative 2 as my answer. Now I'm going to go back to make sure that's correct and put the negative 2 where the variable is. 5 times negative 2 plus 3 equals negative 7. Remember, when you're doing math like this, we do order of operations, and we do multiplication and division before we add and subtract. So 5 times negative 2 gives me negative 10 plus 3 equals negative 7. Again, you cannot add those two numbers together. They have different signs. They go different directions on the number line. So we have to subtract because remember, they cross over each other. So 10 minus 3 gives me 7. I go back up to see which is the longer line or which I have the most of. I have 10 negatives, 3 positives. So it's a negative 7, and that does equal negative 7. So x is equal to negative 2. So now we have solved 2 equations with negatives, and it's your turn to go work the problems on the assignment today, the homework assignment today. Write them down on paper. Make sure you use your integer sign rules, and good luck.